Um, Growing up on a farm, I think gave me a bit of an obsession with painting animals, as you can see. In particular, cattle and sheep. My dad was a farmer, and my very first memory, I would have been about 4 years old, and the very first animal I drew was a pig. And we were visiting a neighbouring farm one evening, and I would have been about 4 maybe, 4 or 5. And that farmer was a fantastic artist. He drew on newspaper, and he opened up cigarette packets and drew on the inside of the cigarette packets. And Mum carried bits of paper with her and some pencils, probably to keep me quiet while we were visiting. And I was sitting at this farmer's kitchen table, and he said, "What are you drawing?" And I said, "A pig, but it's flat. I want it to look round." He said, "Give me your pencil," and he rubbed out the pig's head. And he turned the head towards his body. He says, "Now, there you are, your pig's looking round." So, as I say, I grew up on a farm, and I grew up with art and music. My dad was very musical, and in an era when there was no television, played his accordion, played the fiddle, and he bought me a tin whistle when I was about maybe 5. And I remember there was a local concert. I grew up at Millbrecks, by the way, which is between Newry and Fyvie. And in the old Millbrecks Hall, there was a concert. And I was asked if I would like to go on the stage and play my tin whistle. And I just remember the tune that I played was "Put Another Nickel in the Nickelodeon." A long time ago, obviously. But anyway, through the years, probably music was maybe more part of it than art. And after, I went to Millbrecks School, then Fyvie School, and then Turf Academy. And I went to work in Aberdeen, and I remember my dad encouraging me to go to some voice training to help with singing, which I did. A couple of evenings a week I went to this lady who trained out quite a lot of singers. And I used to go to these music festivals. And the last one I went to, I remember I had to do an operatic song, a Scots song, and a song of my choice. And at the end of that day, a lady approached me and said, "Do you know Andy Stewart?" And I said, "Well, I know who he is, but I don't really know him." "Well, if you come and meet Andy Stewart, we've chosen you to be part, if you want, to be part of the White Heather group. We're going away to tour Australia and New Zealand, and you'd really enjoy that." And I thought about it for a while, and I thought, well, I have to give up my job, and if it doesn't work out, the White Heather thing, I have to come back and look for a new job. And also my dad was very poorly at the time, and if I'd gone away, I wouldn't have seen him again because he passed away at the age of 54. But anyway, then over the years, I'd always done a bit of drawing and painting, but over time, well, of course I got married, had children, and didn't have a lot of time to paint then. And it would have been back in the 70s that I started really painting a bit more seriously. But not particularly seriously until I retired 2004. And then I really had the time to paint, and again, mostly animals. We moved here in 1982, and Bell, my late husband, being a Rosharty man, it was like coming home to him. But it took me a while to really look at the beauty of the ocean and our coastline. It took me years, in fact. And but eventually I began to see the beauty of it all. But I did tend to do some coastal things, but they still had to have animals in them. So if you just kind of look, you can see how much I adored animals. But gradually I did work myself into some of the ocean ones, and here we have the golden horn, the broch. We have some, here's Rosharty ones here. There's a few of them. Tam Heed Rosharty. Sort of the headlands here with some sheep in them. And the seals, of course, is very much a sea thing as well. So as I say, it took me quite a while to get into the beauty of the ocean. But I've got there at last. And of course, lots of things you can do with art. Here I did some, got some table mats done, some coasters done, and then of course calendars. So this year, I've done calendars for quite a few years now, and they've always done quite well. And this year, of course, I'm almost ready to go to Turf Show. And the calendars are all ready for that job as well. So this is this year's calendar. And it has, well, most of the views that are here are part of the calendar. And cards as well is another thing that I decided to do last year. And again, it's all images of what's on my paintings. This is Deer Hill, where I grew up. The photo, obviously, I would have said could have been taken, 1950-ish maybe, I would imagine. I have been back to see it, but it's totally, totally different. There's a brand new house there. The setting is still quite similar, but it's very changed from what it was. But it was an absolutely lovely place to live.
And this is in Fyvie, is it?
This is Millbricks.
Millbricks.
Yes. Well, I went outside one day and I found an old piece of wood and decided to paint on it. So there it is. And it's called Branching Out.
That's fine.
This one is called Heads Up. I did a few photos of cattle, but there was trying to get a composition out of it, there was such a lot of muddle of bodies that I decided just to put a stone dike in front of them and you wouldn't see their legs or bodies. This one I photographed with his tongue out, so I decided to put a spot of grass on his tongue, and that's them, Heads Up. This one's called Buddies, two of my daughter's horses, and I just happened to catch them one day, just like that. A few years ago, there was one little rabbit in the garden, just doing different, turning around and eating bits and pieces, and I remember my younger daughter asking me, "Mum, why have you got about 40 photos of a rabbit on your camera?" Well, that's why, to do some paintings, and put in some dandelions, and it's called Dandelion Tea. Well, just for lots of photos that I've taken, and I just put it together in a composition, and it's called The Nosy Lot. Well, this is a painting of swans, obviously for Strichen Lake, and then a couple of years ago, and I called it Swan Lake. It's very much inspired by the lambing season back in March and April, and it's called Lambing Season. This one here is just an image of the headlands, really, which I see every single day, and I just added the sheep to fill the space, to be quite honest. Mm-hmm. So it's called Winter at the Headlands. Well, this is one for painting a pennon, a table mat. And this one here is the Headlands one, Pennon and Troop Headlands. And of course this one is our local Mount Hooley Ducat. Well, again, these cards are just images of my paintings, or some of course, kind of made up ones, biggies. Scotty, Fyvie the Lake, Fyvie Castle, Gardenston, and Tam Heidre's Harty. And here we are. Oh, here's another local one then. It's like a castle near Rossharty.
All right, that's good.
Fyvie Castle, the one with the goats, the local, the Ducat. This one was actually the front of last year's calendar, the ducks, duck time. This is Pennon. Years and years ago I did a painting of that. The harbour was Harty, Aberdour Beach, Highland Coos, having a rest called Comfy Coos. And there's one of the headlands, there's Gardenston, and a couple of pheasants. Last year we had a lot of pheasants, and I caught this to hen a wee fight. The Groch Beach, Crivy.
Right. Aye.
Well, I started, this is done in pastel, which is a chalky stuff. And I started off, I was just going to paint a cockerel, and anyway, I added some hens and called it Who's the Boss? This really is a made-up story, because I took some photos of a deer, but the scenery is just, a lot of people say, where's that? Well, it's just wherever you want it to be, it's made up. Giving pictures a title can be quite difficult, but that's where I grew up, and it was called Deer's Hill, a very old photo.
Right.
And because there's deers here amongst the hills, I called it Deer's Hill.
Right. Okay.
Give it that special name. Well, when I started painting this, I took photos of the view, but I put the kestrel in to make it more interesting, because I just felt it was just grassy, and so that's the reason for the kestrel being. And it's called Pennon, A Kestrel's View. A good number of years ago now, my husband came in and he said, "Come here and see this." Opened the back door a wee bit, and there was a fox sitting behind the car. Went and got the camera, and he just whirled round. It was a bit fuzzy, so I had a lot of alterations to do, but that's the story of the fox. And the painting was called After Dark. Well, this one is just a piece of wood that I found, and decided to paint on it. And it's the same owl. She was called Isa, and she was in our neighbouring croft at Holland Park. Well, I grew up just a few miles from Fyvie, and Fyvie Castle has always been one of my favourite places. It's just beautiful. Well, this is Jarvis that I bought in 2002, I think it was. And he was a super dog, absolutely lovely Cocker Spaniel, and sadly died in 2016, almost at the age of 14 he was.